Can you hear that? Skinny dipping season activates in five, four, three, two. Welcome to the You Are the Spell podcast with Aunt Carla. Join me each episode as I teach witches and other spiritual practitioners how to develop magical confidence and sovereignty in their practice. Hello, summer! So it's Litha, the festival of Litha, also known as the summer solstice, also known as Midsummer. So this happens approximately June 21st. To be more official, you could say it happens between June 20th and June 23rd each year, and it marks the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's the beginning of summer. If you happen to be in the southern hemisphere, it's your winter solstice. And it's also the first day of Cancer season. So this also marks an important transition point in Earth's seasonal cycle because it's a time when the fertile energy is at its peak and all around us new life is rapidly growing. If you have a garden, this is when things start to move quickly, from your mugwort to your basil to the sage, rosemary, thyme, mint, lemon balm, etc., etc. This is when the plants really start growing. And it's just this hot, hot, hot time. So the festival of Litha is a way of honoring the fertile energy of nature and also celebrating the beauty and magic of our natural world. Litha is also called the Sun Moon Summer Solstice, which means that the day of the full moon is at its longest length while the days grow shorter. Now, when I was a little kid, when people would say that the summer solstice meant that it was the longest day of the year, I didn't understand that because I'm like, well, it's still 24 hours in a day. How can it get any longer? We're not getting any extra hours. Only when I got older, and let me know if you had this thing came across your brain as well. But it's when the day itself, daylight, it's the longest day of daylight, and then it gets shorter and shorter. So the wheel of the year, the witch's wheel of the year for Litha, it marks the time when the seeds have been sown and they're beginning to grow in abundance. And an important theme of Litha is being grateful for the abundance in your life. And from this point on, the days become gradually shorter until Yule, or the hour winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. That's when the days begin to grow steadily longer again, and the cycle continues. Litha is typically a bright and exciting celebration because it celebrates the growing crops, the sun, abundance, and the first day of summer. So I encourage you to celebrate the summer solstice. It's a wonderful way to honor nature's incredible, fertile energy at this time of the year. And it's also a way to connect with our natural world on a deeper, more meaningful level. So I believe that by recognizing and celebrating these little shifts in Earth's cycles and in its natural rhythms, we can become more attuned to nature and feel more grounded in our everyday lives. So if you have been feeling kind of not connected, disconnected to your spiritual practice, Litha, the summer solstice, is a great time to jump back in and to get into that vibe. At the end of this episode, I will have some ideas for you, and you don't have to do all of them. Maybe just try one or two. But by participating in one of nature's festivals, it helps you to connect with the earth and Mother Nature and her natural cycles. So, what's the origin story of Litha? Well, there are a few actually, origin stories, that is, about Litha summer solstice, as many different cultures appear to have celebrated midsummer. For example, the Celts held bonfires on high hilltops, and they celebrated the distance between the earth and the sun since it is at its highest point. So they would gather around these fires and sing and dance. The Celts also used this time to recognize the goddess Ain, or Anne, which is the goddess of love, summer, sovereignty, and fertility. The Romans, they used this time to celebrate Juno, who was the wife of Jupiter. She was recognized as the goddess of women, childbirth, and fertility. Vesta was also worshipped popularly at this time because she was the goddess of hearth, her home, and family. And because, of course, what could be more abundant and bright than large families back in those days? When it came to the early Europeans, they took a more symbolic approach to their midsummer rituals. They set alight these large wheels and they rolled them downhill. And at the bottom of the hill, the wheel would roll into a body of water. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to the purposes behind that tradition, but the theory that seems to be the most popular is that the wheel represents the sun. And as the wheel turned down the hill and it's extinguished, at the end, it's like Litha marking the now dark half of the year. That's what it says. Okay, anyway. Now, of course, the Egyptians, thanks to different speculations from lay people as well as theologists, it is believed that they positioned the pyramids so that on the solstice, the sun could set exactly between them. And of course, we hear about that mysterious structure, Stonehenge, because at Stonehenge, the light falls directly onto the center stone during the summer solstice. And the Mayans also had similar structures underground that only had light filtered through in a certain way on the solstice. So just think about that for a second. There are all of these different cultures since civilization kind of noticed that something was going on in the sky, and they would mark this day with different kinds of celebrations and even create buildings and structures that mark that time. Very, very interesting. So let's talk about correspondences for Litha, aka the summer solstice, aka midsummer. If you have been following my podcast, I had a recent podcast episode on correspondences and how there are different plants and crystals and symbols that are associated with different planets and elements. So do not be surprised that Litha has its own correspondences. So Litha is associated with the element of fire, and the corresponding colors are gold, orange, red, white, yellow, and green. They're very summery, right? Like the hot, fiery colors, plus, of course, green for all that greenery that's happening. Now, the manifestation themes for Litha are growth, prosperity, energy, healing, friends and fun, travel, love, good fortune, and willpower. And I like to also say hot sex because, nothing like summer loving, having a blast. Anyway, next up, if you want to incorporate herbs or flowers into your ritual or your altar, you can have chamomile, mugwort, lily, sunflower, sage, and basil. There are definitely many others, but this is just a good list to get started. There's so many great plants that are in bloom at this time, blooming and just growing like literal weeds. So you definitely want to incorporate those in both your rituals or your altar. Now, as for crystals, the crystals that correspond with the summer solstice include stones such as carnelian, tiger's eye, citrine, jade, and green aventurine. See, like when you think about like the carnelian, the tiger's eye, the citrine, those are, they're like yellow and red and like very hot colored. And for like green aventurine, also emerald, they represent the green side of things. So if you want to create any kind of altar or do any kind of ritual work, these are the correspondences that you can use and they'll be really helpful. All right, so there's no one way to celebrate Litha, but if you're looking for ideas, I have a few. So, one common practice is to watch the sun both rise and set on Litha. That sounds lovely, doesn't it? And as it's the longest day of the year and the peak of the sun god's power, also known as the Oak King, this is an excellent opportunity to pay your respects as he both arrives and departs. It's very, very, very lovely. Very something very lovely about that. Another thing you can do is perhaps get up early and greet the sunrise. Say hi to the sun. You can also go for a walk in the middle of the day when the sun is at its peak. Enjoy the warmth and take that time for personal reflection. Fires are sacred, so it's a great day to light a bonfire or a fire pit if you have one. Gather some friends, have everyone bring some snacks and some music, and just enjoy. Of course, you can also perform a Litha ritual, and I will be running a summer solstice ritual, and I'll have more information about that soon. So, other ways to celebrate Litha include just spend time outdoors, participate in your favorite outdoor hobby, go hiking, walking. Of course, you can get in the water if it's warm wherever you are, go swimming, go sailing, any of that good stuff. Bike rides, going to the beach, soaking up some sun, any of that good stuff. And if you are out in the sun, pay attention to how it makes you feel when it touches your skin. Another way that you can celebrate Litha is to perform divination, whether using oracle cards or tarot cards. The solstice is a great time to tap into this next phase of the year. So use it for divination. One of my favorites, another way to celebrate Litha is through gardening. Yes, of course. Get ready for the harvest. There are a couple of harvests that would be coming up, but first you got to plant those seeds. You got to get those plants. If you haven't made your way to your local garden store yet, then it's time to go. It's time to get some plants. If you haven't already found out about my gardening freebie, I have a like beginners witches gardening. I can't even remember the title. But it's like a guide to witchy gardening. You can get that at redsoulflower.com/6herbs. And I just in that book I talk about just the basic six herbs that you can grow. And I'm actually following my own uh my own medicine this year, is that I'm not getting a whole bunch of plants, but I kept it minimal. That way I can really pay attention to my plants, see which ones need what kind of water or soil or sun or placement. Like, plants, they need your attention. And my first summer I went kind of nuts. This time I kept it simple. So if you're interested in getting my free ebook, go to redsoulflower.com/6herbs. All right, next up, let's see. Charge your crystals. You can use the sun for charging your crystals as well. We often talk about charging our crystals under the moon, but some crystals might actually prefer the sun. I remember listening to some woman's podcast or maybe reading her article, and she was a huge crystal person, and she knew her crystals. She had such a relationship with them that she could tell, or she said that certain crystals had they responded better to different kinds of charging methods. So she had some that she charged under the moon. She had others though that preferred to be charged under the sun. So the sun is at its peak power now. So this is another chance to charge your crystals and maybe other magical tools that you have in the sun. And of course, if you want to make sure that they are sun safe, just like there are some crystals that don't do well in water, there might be some crystals that might not be great in the sun. So make sure that you know which is which. And of course, decorate your altar. That's another thing you can do. Many people, especially some of my Wiccan friends, they like to update their altar for every change, every shift of the witch's wheel. So for Litha, They would decorate their altar, their home, and their self with different, colors and scents and symbolism of Litha. So when you are out and about, you might want to gather some meaningful items to bring inside, such as sunflowers. Sunflowers are definitely, summertime. Sunflowers, mint, basil, lavender, and sage. These are all wonderful herbs and flowers that you can use to celebrate Litha. And you can also use bright colored, like citrus colored fabric and ribbons to cover your altar. You can also light candles in those colors that we were talking about, burn fruity or floral incense. And as we mentioned, also, if you want to use crystals, high energy stones such as citrin, sunstone, garnet, and carnelian will also be are also great at this time. Now, if you happen to be listening to this episode around the time of summer solstice, aka Litha, aka Midsummer, check out my summer solstice ritual. I will be doing it live June 21st at 1 p.m., but the replay will be available. And you can get that at redsoulflower.com/summer. The theme for this year's summer solstice is Hot Witch Summer. So whether you're looking for a hot witch summer or a hot feral summer or a goblin summer, whatever the hell you want to celebrate, whatever brings you joy for the summer season, I want you to have it. And we are going to be having a crayon coven to bring in those themes for manifestation. So as I mentioned earlier, I said hot sex on the platter. That's definitely one of my favorite themes that I want for everyone. But let's see, we also said healing, friends and family, travel, just having fun. Fun. I really want you to have a fun summer. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode about Litha. But more importantly, I hope that you enjoy the season of summer. There's so much fun and joy to be had. And I hope that you squeeze out all of the juice of this season because you are magic. If you'd like to sign up for the free summer solstice manifestation ritual, sign up at redsoulflower.com/summer. And if you'd like the beginner's guide to a witchy garden, you can sign up for that at redsoulflower.com/6herbs. That's the number 6 herbs. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And be sure to tell all your witchy friends. If you have a question or comment, drop me a line at theredsoulflower@gmail.com. That's SOULFLOWER. And I'd love to hear from you. You can also join the Red Soul Flower Magic family on Facebook to continue the conversation.